Okay, welcome. It's a great pleasure for us to welcome Jan Timman today, chess legend, former World Chess Championship challenger, have met and beaten numerous chess world champions, and have also, of course, met the Danish chess legend Bent Larsen, which you will talk about today, Jan Timman. Welcome.
Thank you. Larsen is quite a common name in Denmark. You have Kim Larsen, an excellent singer. You have also, if I'm not mistaken, Larsen pipe tobacco. You have Larsen cognac. But I'm going to talk about Bent Larsen. I don't know whether he liked this specific brand of cognac. He once confided to me that Spanish brandies were his favorites. Bent Larsen was one of the great personalities of post-war chess. He was one of these great persons like my compatriot Donner, who could just catch the audience, who could come up with brilliant stories, and he could tell you all about it. He would never stop talking, but he could also listen. It was really a privilege to know him. I remember when we were playing in Bourgogne in 1980. I already knew him for 3 years, because in 1977 I played the first game against him. But in 1980, he played actually very well in Bourgogne. Bourgogne is a town in Bosnia that was hit by the war later on. But it hosted some really strong top tournaments in those days. We played 2 rounds there, and then suddenly Tito died. So we had to move. Well, we didn't have to move, but we couldn't continue playing because for 1 week it was not allowed to have any sporting events in the former Yugoslavia, because the war in Yugoslavia had not taken place. So we moved to Dubrovnik to have holidays there for 1 week. Why do I tell you the story? It's because for this reason. Larsen was sitting there in the restaurant, at the tables talking, coming up with brilliant story, and a local woman from Dubrovnik approached Lobojevic. She said, who is that man there? That's really a remarkable man. That's an absolutely great man. I've never seen anybody like that. I think that somehow characterizes him. We had long talks with each other, and sometimes we would talk till in the morning. I remember once we were sitting at the bar of Hotel Bosrand in Oostenrijk. This was during the Interpolis tournaments in Tilburg. I think it was in 1979. We were talking till 6:30 in the morning. And the bartender didn't want to close the bar. He liked our conversation. But probably he was the only one who could remember them after all. Larsen was also not only interested in chess, he was in all sorts of fields, literature, also politics. He once asked me, did you ever consider to become Prime Minister of Holland? I was taken aback by that question. I thought, well, I mean, it's really an interesting question, but it never crossed my mind. But the point is that actually he had himself considered to be Prime Minister of Denmark. And, well, it's probably better that he stayed at chess, because when you want to become Prime Minister, you have to be some really boring meetings where you cannot talk at all, and you have to listen to what other people have to say. So he was, I think, better off in the chess world. But he had obviously keen interest. I remember that once he said that if the Danish government would close down Christiania, this hippie colony, free state here in Denmark, then if they would do that, he would consider not to represent Denmark anymore. Well, it's actually good that when he died 7 years ago, and even now still, Christiania exists. That's good to know that. Of course, Bent Larsen was the best player in the West for a while. I think, for example, in 1967, he was really the best player. The second half of the year, he played 66 games in 4 months, won 4 tournaments in a row, among them the interzonal tournament in Sousse. And actually, he said, well, it's an experiment, I did it once, I will never repeat it. But it was really successful. And it was in the same period that Fischer actually withdrew from the interzonal. So he had actually the right to claim himself to be the best player outside the Soviet Union. And it's also remarkable that in 1970 he claimed first board in the match of the Soviet Union against the rest of the world. But he did quite well. He made 1.5 against Spassky, and he beat Stein. So he had a positive score against the Soviets. I think in 1970 this was probably also one of his best years. In this period, I think 1967 to 71, he was really at his best. Played many games. I think the match against Fischer that he lost disastrously in 1971 was somehow put him down. And I think after that he was probably not a real contender anymore for the world title. But some things are funny. When I was preparing this lecture, I was looking at his games, of course, also at his career. And then you see some interesting things. He was really very late when he came to his summit, when he became at his best. Because, for example, in 1962, he was 27. Well, you would say a player of 27 has to play a lot, but he played only 16 games that year. That's remarkable. So he was not always focused on chess. It was something that, yeah, he probably had his mind on other things. But other years, well, 67 he played on over 100 games, there were more years. I think in 71 he played a total of 114 games, if I remember well, which is very much actually. And I'm going to show you a game that he won against Gligoric in 1971. The game took place in Vinkovci, and it's an important game to understand him, and I think the game is quite well known. And because his love for pushing the A and H pawn is illustrated in an interesting way, in an excellent way, just the best way you can imagine. Let's look at the game. G3. He could start with any move. B3, G3. Openings didn't matter for Bent. He just wanted to get the middle game that he understood. So in fact now it's a Sicilian. Low Sicilian. I go through the opening move because not so much to say about it. That's the first move that is interesting, A4. So of course to stop B5, but after B6, knight C4, H4. So that's typical Larsen, I would say. This was his brand. He'd like to push these pawns. And actually here, he just plays his own way, yeah. Maybe he will play bishop h6. He waits what black will do. In fact, Gligoric played here d5. I think that knight g4 came into consideration. It's also what the computer likes, because black is not obliged to push d5. It's of course a very classical move, and a classical player like Gligoric would play that. The knight g4 has also the idea sometimes to play the other knight to d4, and this position is somehow balanced. Also knight g4 has the advantage that white cannot play bishop h6, and actually knight g4 has also a psychological advantage, because you want to show that h4 is not always the best move. But okay, Gligoric played this classical way, d5, for driving the queen back. Now he changes the bishops, and he pushes the pawn further. Still on h6, you will see what happens. h5, okay, the knight is worse on h5, now he goes to a battle square with the queen. f6. And now on the other side. E5. This is incredible, this game, James. You cannot illustrate in a better way what sort of player Larsen was. You just don't find any game by any other player where white has pushed it. Just no other pawns, the other pawns are on the second and third rank, just 2 pawns on the 6th rank. Now, this was probably the best, because if black takes on a6, knight a5, is b4, and you just play knight b3 back. And here, black's pieces are not very well coordinated, his pawns are weak. He has to give up the a pawn, there's absolutely no other move here.
And if b takes c4?
But
If b takes c4 instead, what is that? Instead of bishop takes a6?
yeah, this possibility, yeah. Check it. G4 wins, yeah. That's of course the point. You see it? It wins because the knight has no squares. So we had to move back the, just put up bishop a8, knight jumps. I can put the evaluation, maybe it is nice to see what that's the computer what the computer thinks here. Knight takes. Knight takes was no, e5 is still okay, but it's difficult for black. This was the mistake. But on the other hand, if he would play queen a6, knight b3, it is also a very unpleasant position. So the interesting part is that the a pawn was there to be sacrificed. The h pawn will remain on h6. Knight d4. Now, just the culmination of all this, knight b7. Just now you see some tactics. And white is winning here. The main reason is that the knight on h5 is completely out of the game. The bishop on b7 is very strong. This also means that after rook e7, white can just go into the pin with rook takes a7. King f8, rook b1, f5, takes b5, knight f6. Still, black could fight here with rook e8, but probably he's lost anyway. C pawn is coming. This is the simplest. Bishop f1. It's becoming very easy. Dominating the knight again. And resigns. Okay, this game was played in 1970. Yeah, 1970 he played 14 games. It was important that he won this game against Danish because he won the tournament with 10.5 out of 15, just half a point ahead of 4 players. I move on now to another game where he also moved the A and H pawn, also to show that he was very good in changing the picture of the position. I may put it that way. You see here that he does it with black. Exactly the same opening, now with different opposite colors. Okay, A5, E4, bishop E7, and H5. Again, he does it with black as well, and it actually is very justified in the King's Indian to play A5 and H5. So from both wings he doesn't weaken anything and he just gets space. This game against O'Kelly, yeah, it was again, this is 1 year earlier, it's from 69. Actually, this tournament, it didn't go well for Bent. Didn't play well. Very well known ID. So both moves worked here for black. H5 was to play bishop H6, it's of course a common ID. He wants to get rid of this bishop. Now it's understandable that O'Kelly played F4. Just to keep the bishops and also to put more pressure on the center. So we get the maneuvering game. It's about even, this position. Not so much is happening. Just a lot of tension, of course, but he decides now this is the moment to exchange these pawns, to play rook c7. The idea is very simple. It's to play knight c5, and then play the rook to e7 and pressurize the e-pawn. That's why White decided to take here. Now he's going to change his plan, because this bishop on h6 is not doing much, and he's just putting it in the fianchetto position again. Looks quite nice for black. But here, of course, you see that he's going to change, that Bent is going to change the picture of the position. He's now playing knight against bishop, but this is obviously time pressure. He's playing just to see whether O'Kelly can cope with this time pressure. It's a piece sacrifice. And you see, of course, that he's playing for a win here with black. White is forced to take. And here White blundered to time pressure. But this, he should have played king f2. I can show a few moves. King f3, rook e7. This is probably going to end in a draw. White can try to play for a win. But here, king e2, black has enough counterplay. The computer believes this is about equal. But what happened in the game was very brute. This was just king h1, and O'Kelly just overlooked that his rook on f1 was not hanging. I think this game was also a good illustration that Larsen was a great fighter. He simply wanted to win. Even the position was getting into time pressure. He normally had enough time himself, and then he would look for his chances. He would also take his chances. He would be ready to sacrifice a piece. But I like the positional way of of this game. Actually, when I was looking at these games, preparing this lecture, I learned a lot. I learned how great a positional player Bent was. The third game I'm going to show you is from the Nimzowitsch Memorial. It was played in Copenhagen when Bent was actually much younger. He was 25, and to beat Geller in those days was really an achievement. You see again this tendency, of course, Larsen is known to have b3 as an opening, but of course he liked to play any sort of move, g3, c4, e4, even e4, and he just wanted to find his own way. He's ready after e4 to retreat to e1, and then just to try to get the hold of the center. But Geller just played knight f6, now c4, and we have transposed to some sort of English opening. In general, he liked this kind of flank games. And see, both players have their own ideas. Of course, White wants to push b4. Black hopes to get e4 in, or otherwise he just hopes that he has more space in the center, and that's giving him quite a reasonable position in general. You have this also with reversed colors, this type of position. And the extra tempo, of course, means that White is certainly not worse. But actually here, both sides play normal moves, b5. Actually, in his comments, Larsen doesn't say anything about the retreat knight e8, but the computer has a clear preference, I will show you. So computer believes that knight a5 is better for black, at least now. But of course, after a while, he believes that it's still not so clear, because there's e3. Now he changes his mind, he thinks it's more or less okay. Bishop g4. After rook a1. Can play c4. Keeping a hold of the center, and this is more or less equal. But knight e8 is, I think in those days, people didn't want to put their knights so much on the rim, and they thought it's more better on d8. But in fact, it's less active. And now White still not something that the computer recognizes, but White is slowly getting the better. See, both bishops are via chatouts. Yeah, this is a moment where Black, of course, could play e4. And probably that's the right move. Just if takes, knight takes e4. And this is probably about equal. c6 is the other way to proceed, but after rook e1, you see this is all very well played. And by Larsen, first Black had the a file, but now he's just putting pressure. You know, this is typical Reti approach. You just pressure with both bishops along diagonals. Right, going back to f3, hitting the knight on f6, Black has to defend it. c1, also very positional play, and it looks like not so much is happening here, but on the other hand, White's pieces are all very active and Black is passive. And here he will outplay Geller in a very impressive way with some combinations. Black is still holding, but the pressure is mounting. Knight comes to e5. Knight e7. It's absolutely great play. You see that the both bishops are very good on the diagonals. The white is winning now suddenly. Black tries desperately to get counterplay. Of course, white can play rook c3, but he has seen some really nice combination. Now there's going to be a king hunt that ends in mate. See, the king was on g8, now it's on c8, but it's not safe either there. Something to be said for Geller here. He created a threat, mating threat himself. The bishop, g8 king. Now it's interesting what comment Larsen has on this in his book. He says, well, Geller wanted, he stretched out his hand, but at that moment he did to resign. At that moment his flag fell. It's also mate in two. He said, but yet you can only get 1 point from a game. That is actually true, yeah. Larsen considered this to be one of the best games of his career. And yes, in general, I have looked for games that are not so familiar, like the one against O'Kelly, but I thought I had to include this game. Because it gives a very fresh impression of the young Larsen. Another next game. And this game against Pano. Oh, another game against another game from Copenhagen. That is from a match that they played in '66. And I just want to go to a position here. I just give this simple endgame position. Black to move. Well, it's clear that Geller wants to make a draw here, but this is also typical that Bent could squeeze something out of a position where there's almost nothing. Look what happens. Now it's 4 against 4. Rook d7. Knight f2. Doesn't look like a great problem for white, because after e4 is knight d4. But it's not an easy draw. Knight e5. Check. E7. What to do? Rook e8 is a good move, because you force the knight to take an f3. You see that here, Geller has to make one more move. For his time pressure, and he makes the wrong choice. This position, he has either took over the hook ending, but it's never a safe draw. F5, H5, I don't know. It's not clear that it's a draw. But of course, it's better than what he played. Could also have played king g2. On the other hand, white has black at knight d2, keeping the pawn on e4. And it's also a struggle for white. But Geller played king e2, and now it's suddenly over. Knight f1. You cannot protect the g-pawn. Rook g4 was more or less forced. e5. Rook is now trapped. White can do nothing. And resigns. This is to show that he could really squeeze something out of a position where there was almost, looked like there was nothing in it. Next game I'm going to show is a game against Pano from Buenos Aires 1980. In this tournament, the Clarin tournament, both Larsen and I ended above Karpov, and I beat Karpov, but Larsen won the tournament in a very impressive style. It was 1980. He was of course, in his mid-40s, and he had also his downs, his ups and downs. He played badly in 2 tournaments before in Holland, but he played very well on the other hand in 1980 Bugorno, the tournament where he finished second behind Karpov. But in Buenos Aires we had it was actually a great tournament in 1980. We played in a big theater, and there were up to 4,000 spectators for every round, and I think that Larsen liked it very much. He had a schedule of playing 4 games till 40 moves, adjournment, so we played 2.5 hours in those days for 40 moves. And then we had the special days for adjournment, then another 4 games, then another special day. So Larsen actually, from his first 8 games, he had 7 adjourned games. He scored 6 out of 7 from his games. First 4 games he had all adjourned, and on the day after the 4th rounds, on this day for adjournments, he did something which not many people have accomplished. He won 4 games within 6 hours. Actually, I also had 4 adjourned games. I only scored 3 points. But yeah, and one game I'm going to show you is from the 4th round. And I think this game is very typical also for his play. It is, he's mainly a positional player, and he has the habit of just putting pressure on his opponent from positions where it looks like it's almost equal. Pano, this game is 74 moves. He was 3 times in time pressure. Larsen played very quickly. This voluntary exchange is, of course, maybe not the best, but on the other hand, Black wants to give this bishop anyway, and he doesn't want White to take back just the knight on everything. So the move is understandable. Black is hesitating whether he wants to push e5 or not. And White just first puts his pieces in the best positions. Not much is happening for a long time. So Black hasn't played for this e5. It was probably, he found it committal. Now White pushes d4. And we get more or less known position where from the Slav Grunfeld. Maneuvering, just very slow maneuvering. No hurry at all. Okay, now we get h4. That's the time. But he waited actually for a long time. But now it's okay. The knight went to e8 and sometimes h5 is good. Like plays f5. Pano was also a positional player, and he, I think he did this quite well. He's getting enough control. See that Bent wants to move this knight e3 maybe to f4. Black wants to have clarity on the queen side. Okay, now it's going to be close. Probably black played knight b5, which is blocking the queen side voluntarily, but it will not be for long. Probably it was a better idea to concentrate play here in the center, play b4 and e5. I think this gives black better counterplay. He played knight b5, b4, h6, bishop f1. This is also one of his typical moves. The bishop is going to hit the knight on b5, and finally white will actually break through on the queen side. Black has the first break, and now h5, because the f-pawn may be weak. e4, black wants to keep it closed. And now we see this is all very positional for white. Of course, black can get his pawn on g6 back, but he cannot solve all his problems. And here, queen h5. The white wants to play the endgame, and he's not afraid that the position is too close, because Larsen was never afraid of that. He was always quite confident that he would break through at some moment. Winning back the pawn, but not solving the problems. Rook b1. It's all very clear-cut play. Now, if black plays, he wants to stop b5, knight b5, take, c6, and now the c5 will be opened. Rook c8, bc1. And of course the bishop on b2 is not great, but black has absolutely no way to keep his pawns. The knight on h5 is very strong. So Pano played knight e7, and that was now time to push. White will win back the pawn on b5, and also the bishop on c3. Bishop was bad, but now it has some scope. It can sometimes go to a5. Of course, this was the first time pressure for Pano. And he survived the first time pressure, but he's of course just in the defensive. And now white opens the other front. See that white is very patient here, and he's very confident that the position is not too close. For the moment, all black's pawns are well protected, his pieces are more or less okay, but white has the pressure. So two weak pawns, b7 and f5. Now he's going to move the knight to other squares. It was very well placed on h5 for a while, but now going back to put more pressure. You see that now f5 can be targeted. There's absolutely no hurry, king f2. This looks like a passive move, but on the other hand, knight e7 is a clever defense, because to protect the f-pawn, and if you do this now, there's rook a6. And of course that's not so much, because the a-pawn is hanging. But white is not in any hurry to win his weak pawns. He just continues maneuvering. Rook b1. Now black has to protect the a-pawn. And he brings the king square. Look first. First the knight is going to a dominant square now. And of course, this was the second time pressure for Pano. It was 56 moves we had, and then 60 moves after the 40 moves, 1 hour. It's all, it looks all very simple chess, yeah. It's over protecting e3. Now the rook is going to pressurize somewhere else. It's just, I mean, I don't even have to give much comments to this game. This game is not really very well known, but it's such a typical example of great maneuvering. Small advantages make them bigger. But now it's already, Pano has made the second time control, but he's still suffering. And now the knight was on h5, and look now it's on b6. Meanwhile, white is winning, also the computer believes this. But again, not in a hurry. h1, maybe black wanted to play king h5, so he doesn't want to allow that. Finally, takes the first pawn. It's funny that the b and f pawn looked beat, but the first pawn to fall is black's a pawn. Third time pressure for Pano, but now it's completely hopeless because they can simply not keep the pawns. The queen side they're going to promote. A beautiful finish. See this bishop that was looked bad. b2 now it's dominating. Complete domination. c-pawn will decide. Absolutely great game. It's very good strategy, and you see this, then you really wonder why Larsen never became world champion. He also beat Petrosyan twice in Santa Monica, 66, when Petrosyan was world champion. Also, absolutely brilliant maneuvering games. I'm not going to give them here, because they're quite well known. Now the question is, why Bent didn't become world champion? That is actually an interesting question, and I think that the answer is that sometimes he was not alert in a tactical sense. He could overlook simple attacking possibilities of the opponent. But the well-known example is this game that he played against Spassky in the match against the Soviet Union, the world against the Soviet Union, where he started with b3 and lost horribly with white. Because he overlooked the attacking idea by Spassky. But to illustrate actually this lack of sense of danger, I will give you a game that he actually won, and a game that is also quite well known and considered to be a very good game. I give the whole game against Kavalek, Lugano, 1970. But in fact, it's not a very good game. You see here that he played an Nimzowitsch move, again the double fianchetto, of course. Quite a nice position. And here black played f5. In his book, Larsen writes that Kavalek said after the game f5 was a mistake, and he agreed with that. It's better to play h5. Because f5 actually limits black's possibilities, and And the future h5 of white will be stronger. And h5. You see, we have seen this already a couple of times that Bent Larsen to push this pawn to h4 and h5. Many times, yeah. He doesn't. But okay, black gets counter. e4. Now the position is becoming razor sharp. White has to do something with his king, of course, knight e5. Starting to jump to d3, knight f4. Hitting d6, protected. Okay, now it's a critical moment. Here, Larsen played king b1, and he won the game with this move. But actually, in fact, it's a bad move, it's a losing move. Computer found some really brilliant way to play this position. And actually, the idea is actually taken up by Larsen one move later, to play g4. But here, it has a very special point. Just show you the variation. Knight takes e6, knight d3 check, sacrifice the queen. Knight takes g7. So, what does white have? He has only two pieces for the queen. But you can just drive black king in a mating dance. This is all forced. Spade 3. And all the moves are very important, but of course, e4. Don't take the knight. Knight e7. Bishop g4. Absolutely fantastic variation, of course. Absolutely brilliant. And difficult to see at the board. Yeah. No, very difficult. But actually, Larsen, it's understandable that Larsen didn't find this. Right, there's only one piece now for a queen, but it's, well, the two bishops are absolutely devastating. They're just destroying black. It's interesting the comment of what Larsen had when he played king b1. He writes in his comment, now Kavalik was thinking for a long time and he finally played bishop f7. And then Larsen writes, well, probably he was thinking about bishop sacrifice, bishop takes c4. But after, this is the comment of Larsen. It's not possible to see what black has here. But to continue. But actually, in fact, black is winning here. Knight takes b2. King takes b2. Queen a4. Absolutely, the bishop on g7 is fantastic. White pieces are not defending. Only defense is queen d2. And now d5, and it will be just over. And I just show you this comment of Larsen also, that he really didn't feel this danger. Also in his comments, he was still confident, I'm doing the right thing. I'm playing a great game. And after Kavalik finally, and I don't know why he was so intimidated, but that was also a psychological matter. In general, Kavalik is a very active player. He played this passive move, and now Larsen didn't have to calculate it, because c4 is much stronger now. Of course, if you take with the pawn, then e4 falls, and that will be over. Now you just open up. And suddenly queen h2. This is of course much easier calculation, because it's always good to start on mate in 1. Desperation. It's still some nice points. 7. It's completely over, but still some counterplay. Knight e6. Queen takes. Of course, now you don't want to take the queen. You take here. Now, absolutely fantastic move. F8. That resigns. If rook f7, and you see how it works. Mates. So absolutely brilliant game, but there was just a flaw. And it was also, I mean, if, say, Larsen would have played this game against Tal, probably wouldn't have gotten away with it. Or some other player, Stein, maybe some other, Basky would probably have taken on c4. Then he would still have been optimistic, but he would have lost the game. I think that this sometimes happens to him, yeah, that he was too optimistic, and then there was danger. Now I'm going to move on to some fragments from games. And first I want to show two very nice motifs in the middle game. And later I go to the end game. First, game against Heikki Westerinen. And I pick up for this position, after about its 25th move. Westerinen and Larsen played a match of 8 games in 1969. No draws. Larsen won 6, Westerinen won 2. It's actually very funny. Westerinen was always a player who would make no draws. I never made a draw against him. We had only wins and losses. I won more, but same as Larsen in this match. But here you see a very complicated struggle. This middle game struggle, you see all the pieces entwined there in the middle of the board. And, well, black is a pawn up, but it's not so clear what is going to happen. Because white certainly has compensation. C takes d. Now, actually, the computer believes that if white plays c takes d, f6, and rook d2, d1, quiet move, the position is about equal. White has enough compensation. But look what happened. He played knight takes d5. This looks like a completely normal move. Of course, you know, you can imagine that you can try some move like knight e6, because the knight cannot move. Mate on b2. But then white has knight f6. White is doing well here suddenly. Settling queen h6 and mate. Now, how did Larsen solve this? It's absolutely brilliant. He played f5 first. He takes f5, and now he played knight e6. This is like in an endgame study. You see that both knight and pawn cannot take the knight, because hang on b2 and f1. So black gets a winning game here, suddenly. I just show the rest of the moves. So since he cannot take the knight on e6, he takes the other knight. But now, take knight takes d4, and of course, this is very powerful. Now you're still the pawn up. You're fantastic, there's no blockade anymore. Just over. Changing queens, that doesn't help, because if you take here, f1 check, wins. So, Westerinen tried desperately, queen h4, bishop f5, you know, no mate, so h7, 6. protecting the square on f8 on the right hand. This is the first example. Second one, 12 years later, against Yasser. And again, I just take the middle game position. But this is, you see again that this is a very complex position, rather closed. This was some sort of typical Larsen position. Close, right? There's a lot of pressure on b5, but on the other hand, black is the only one who can break. So white's break on the queen side will not result in anything. And it's understandable that white wants to do something on the king side. For he has no other possibilities left. It's also interesting that Larsen apparently, if white would have played f4 here, and he would probably not take on f3, but just continue and trust in the fact that he has to break g5 later on and try to win that game. But on f3, something else happened. Bishop takes these two. And this looks actually very funny because he lets his bishop just be blocked in. But he has calculated this very well. Let's of course protect the bishop, and now d5 is hanging. Now of course, white didn't do the best. He had, also the computer says that after knight takes d5, this game is not very clear. But okay, let's see what happened. Yasser did this. Knight took here. And look what happened. Yeah. This looks suddenly very good for white. Do you see what Bent played here? Because it's another brilliant knight move. Just the b5 was not open before. Suddenly it's a mating threat. This is a very nice pendant of this move against Westereen and this move. They fit very well together, I guess. Okay, the rest of the game was easy because since there's a mate in one threat, he must lose his knight on g3. But this is desperation. Total desperation, everything wins. And white finally resigns. But actually doesn't look good anymore. Okay, this were some tactics in the middle game. Now I'm going to move on to the end game. And what I'm going to show is how he could find chances in positions that looked completely drawish, and he could still. He had this special ability, like Magnus Carlsen has today. Very similar, just putting some pressure and just increasing this pressure. This game is from Beverwijk. Tournament was still played in Beverwijk at the time, 1964 against Darga. And in this end game, well, I mean, white has two bishops, but the bishops are not very strong, not very active. And black, of course, tries to win, although actually the position is equal, I would say. So, look what happened. h3. So first the bishop in, and now the knight can jump. Good squares. f1. e5. f4, this is all normal. Knight c4. Of course, white he can probably make a draw if he takes on c4, but you never know. I mean, of course, there is also f5. Not fearing that the position will be more closed. So the king is going to protect there. And d5. Now, of course, black has made some progress, but in this position, of course, white has very little to fear, very little. But on the other hand, sometimes when you're white, you want to force things, especially when the time pressure is approaching. And that actually, that's why it went wrong for Varga. Looking for counterplay, he played g4. And suddenly black gets a passed pawn. Now I guess that probably the best defense is to let the pawn come to h2, and then it's not completely clear whether black can win. But on the other hand, you want to stop that pawn, yeah, and then now a brilliant move. That he must have missed. It should be 2. Winning, if you cannot keep it. There's also win the opposite color bishop and this check. Didn't change anything. Of course, black doesn't take with this king because bishop h3 check. He just goes here. Simple. Besides, so that's one example. Just putting pressure on the opponent all the time, and in time pressure something can go on. Now more impressively, game against Pologayevsky. From the Havre 1966, the tournament also won by Larsen. Quite, maybe not such a strong tournament, but quite a good accomplishment. Actually, Larsen, in his book, he says, well, didn't play any very good games there, but I still like this endgame that he played against Pologayevsky. I like it actually very much. Just start here. I mean, it's a typical position where, I mean, nothing much can happen. Also, quite a close position. Any danger for black? Well, let's see. G5. So white improved his king. Now he's going to improve this bishop. Looks like some progress. Not much. So the bishop is back. And now you want to prove that h5 may be a weakness. Not so easy though. Yeah, there's always a problem. Black, of course, he can change bishops, but you never know if this is really a draw. I think it's probably a draw, but okay, this looks also playable. And now, white, of course, didn't want to change bishops, but then black would really have that easy draw because there's no e5. f5, yeah. Now, of course, white shouldn't close any further. And now it's a bit difficult, because if these bishops are exchanged, then white, of course, has the good bishop. So he tries to keep it this way. Now, white finds a way, try to enter. So we can see the progress that white has made in the last 20 moves. It's a very accurate maneuver. This is a typical idea. Black gets counterplay now, and the position is objectively still a draw, but pressure. So white now doesn't want to to go for the h pawn immediately. He first attacks because then black has king e4, so he first wants to capture b pawn. So white is a pawn up, but on the other hand, his f pawn is of course strong. If you push f3, then white puts his bishop on f2, and you cannot get any further. So bishop f8, bishop e1, h4, f3. And now, after h4, white has found square for his king, so he can stop the f pawn. And you see that number. I mean, white doesn't want to push h5 because then king g5. On the other hand, black cannot push his f pawn, so he waits. That's good. Bishop e3, f8. Bishop d4. His idea is now king e3, or bishop h6. And now, of course, he has to play bishop e3, but this is that probably white cannot win because black has this f pawn, and of course you always have to stop the black king from coming to e3. So it's the same idea before when the white king had to come to h4. Black can hold this, but he played. That is very unfortunate. On move 62, he played bishop e5. Now it's over. Second pawn. This move is what Olivier stuff Mr. King g4. Otherwise it works, of course. Otherwise it's wrong. I mean, if you play bishop h4, you follow the bishop. Bishop in g5. After king g4. Bishop h6. Lost. The pawns beat, of course, the bishop very easy. No hurry. h6. Nice move. Bishop h6, a5, and the pawn is not cannot be stopped. Of course, he resigned here. So absolutely brilliant endgame. It shows that you can just this very long and patient maneuvering can get great successes. For the last endgame that I'm going to show, there's a story behind it. This is a game from that Porto was 79. That was the fourth Fifth-Man Memorial. And I won the tournament. Bent was second. But before the tournament started, we had a party, when just glasses of white wine, we were overlooking the lake of Bled. It was beautiful scenery, and both Bent and I were drinking some of this excellent Slovenian white wine. And one of the organizers asked us, first he asked me, who will win the tournament? And I said, well, I don't know, I have to see. Of course, I wanted to win the tournament. I didn't say that, but that was completely different. He said, of course, I will win the tournament. Okay. And finally, we played in the last round. We had 5 pieces, but I held the draw and I was the winner. But from this tournament, I want to show an endgame against Tony Miles. And this is a completely different endgame because, well, I mean, white has an exchange up, but it looks like it's compensated enough. In fact, it is, yeah, because this position is really equal. Black can just keep the white rook out. Bishops are performing quite well. 2 pawns for the exchange, well, nothing much is happening. But okay, Bent continues fighting. So g4 cannot be taken because then the a pawn falls. King h6, king a5. This is all okay. King g2, And here black had to wait, bishop e5, because you see again that here he became impatient, he took. And it looks like this is okay. But actually here, from now on, he plays very well, Larsen. He just found the only moves to win the game. First, of course, he attacks both pawns. Black, of course, wants to protect the A pawn. And it looks like this is all right for black, but at some point, bishop will have no squares. Because if you play bishop d4, there's rook d1. And now there's no square on the long diagonal to protect a7. So black has to give up this pawn. The long run, he has to go from the diagonal. That means that he will lose the pawn, but still it's not easy. Rook c2. Because first you have to enter on the 7th rank, this white. All these moves are very instructive. Only way. Get to d7. Finally you achieve the goal. Win the a pawn. It's not all. Now you see that black cannot move. But it's not so easy for white to make progress either. F5. Keeping the king out. D3. Black is no good waiting, was threatening a7. So much go here now. King enters. Okay, this looks easy, but it's not. Because here, around this moment, Miles came to me and he said, well, I hope that I calculated this well and I can make a draw. But in fact, there's a beautiful finish here. Now, of course, if the black king comes to a7, it's a draw. Now you have to study like win. It's a very well-known motive in game studies. Black resigns because it takes a7, king c8. Absolutely brilliant. And, so that was something that Bent must have calculated on in advance. Now I move on to my last fragment, and this one is really very special because it's a very unusual game. It's also been given by Tim Cabet, Chess Curiosities. And it's really one of the great games of all times, I think. But I will just only from one moment, from this moment. We see this position where white has, it's equal of course, but white has some play, threatening knight e7 and then to disturb black with queen g8. Of course, a safe move for black is here, rook a5. Position is about e. This was quite possible, but Bent was not afraid. He just went for this. You see again that here, at some point he really underestimated this danger. He could, for example, play here this, and the rook e5. Okay, takes on e2, it will be a draw. Because the bishop is very good and the b pawn, it's about equal. And look what he did. He played queen. This after knight e7. Just let his king be chased. g8. And it's probably okay. That's the point. That's actually very funny. Of course, now he cannot take on e7. So mate on d8. Okay, fearlessly goes to g5. Queen f8. Rook takes e2. Knight g8. This is actually, of course, a very dangerous position for black. But the funny thing is that I think that his judgment was alright of black. Because black is absolutely fine here. Not after the move he played, after h5. This is, he should have been mated. Should have been, I don't know. It's probably better that he was not mated, because otherwise we wouldn't have seen the brilliant finish of the game. But, and this is really incredible, that he had to move king g4, which is fine for black. Because the king comes to h3 and it's quite safe. f3 check, king h3. Black wins, h6, h5. King g4 was the move. The computer sees only one move, queen a8. Difficult to find. c8, h3. Now we see something funny happening. King is back on c7. That is here, of course, black doing very well. So the whole idea was good. And of course, I mean, here it was not accurate. Play this move. And now this is really too much. Because knight h6, and that's a very fine move actually. Keeping the king from g4. Bishop d2. Clever defense. White played the most obvious move here. That is knight takes f7. But if he would have played queen g7, this would have been h4, for example, f4, mate in 10. What the computer says, and anyway, it's easy to see that the king simply cannot escape. Of course, time pressure. Yeah. So, I mean, on the other hand, if you see one pawn hanging on f7, and also, Jaden had a brilliant idea here in mind. Or queen d8 was here the best move, and still better. But look what he did. He had an absolutely brilliant idea. Takes d2, f3. Queen c8 check. Absolutely fantastic. White is threatening to be mated. If you take the queen, it's mating one. Now, of course, this is getting completely crazy. Black is this move. It's amazing. This is an absolutely amazing move. It's a forced move, but it's one of these great moves, you know. What can White do? He cannot take it. G4, because then there's no mate anymore. G2, rook h2 check. Only move that he can play is knight g5, but now it's not mate, but he loses the knight. On the other hand, White has a queen up against a rook. You see, he played rook g2 check, king h1. I know many players who would settle for a draw here. But what meant he played rook c5. Now it's tricky. White can make a draw here, but he must stay on this diagonal. He must play this, or he must play this. But it's very important to keep this threat of g takes h5 or g5 against the black king. But what did he do? Move 40 with time pressure. And also a very tempting move, queen d8, threatening mate in 1. Now, g5. This is absolutely fantastic. What can White do? White has no defense here. Only defense, actually he played, only defense actually here is rook queen h8, after rook cc2, h5, king c3, he will win the rook ending. Take c5, rook c6, and after rook b4, there's just g4. In the long run, you're going to. No, here you play rook h6 first.
It's checkmate.
Oh no, this is checkmate. Sorry, yeah, no, I was mistaken here because I. Oh, you're right. Yeah, no, this is not possible. Oh, that is the point. Yeah, rook c6 wins. That wins very easily because White has to play this. Yeah, that is the point, of course. And he has to play this hopeless position. In fact, Jelen didn't play this. He played the move rook b1, and he. I think the game was adjourned here, and he resigned without further play. See rook c2. The winning move, threatening mate. If you play queen d5, you have this simple h6 g4. A simple move. It's just over. Always get the winning rook ending here out of this. But this was an absolutely great game, also a great escape, of course. And it shows another side of Larsen. It was really a privilege to have known him. I played him many times, actually in a period of 10 years. We played all many tournaments together. And always good fights, and it was always very good spirits. Any questions about?
What is your personal score against Larsen? Do you know more or less?
Yes, I have 9 wins. He has 7 wins,
Okay.
and some draws.
And another question. He lived a long time outside Denmark, right? I think first in Spain and then later on to Argentina?
Well, he lived in Las Palmas.
Las Palmas, yes. But that's Spain.
Yeah, Spain, yeah. But of course it's...
but later on he moved to Argentina, right?
Yes, he met his Laura, his second wife, in Mar del Plata, 1982.
So it had to do with personal reason, not because he found maybe not to have enough recognition in Denmark as a chess player, or was it also?
I think that to do with a couple of reasons. He found quite pleasant in Las Palmas. Also, he probably had tax reasons. Very simple. Yeah. But the reason that he moved to Argentina is certainly because his wife lived there. Lived in La Plata. Since, well, don't know, for many years, yeah. More questions?
One more question or two? Maybe? No? Okay, thank you, Jan Timman.